Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's award-winning gay poet writing about childhood trauma, mental illness, survival, and healing. None other than Mr. Mickie Kennedy.
Hi.
Welcome, Mr. Mickie, on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Yeah, I'm Mickie Kennedy. I am a poet with a new book coming out, and it's a book of poetry, and it's about growing up in the South, growing up gay and closeted, and sort of dealing with the AIDS crisis and that leading me back into the closet and just sort of like coming out as gay later in my life and processing a lot of the childhood traumas that I dealt with, losing my father early in my life and my mother who spiraled into alcoholism as a result of my father's death.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your poetry to the world, Mr. Mickie. Thank you. So today let's talk about your two books about poetry. The titles Landscapes and Worth Burning together create a powerful friction. One suggests the intimate biological mapping of the body, the other implies a judgment of value under the threat of fire. What central tension or conversation between the two ideas were you exploring across these collections?
I think that with Worth Burning, it's more about my life and more totality. Glandscapes is more of a chapbook that deals with processing, going through prostate cancer diagnosis and treatment, which is something I've gone through the last couple of years. So one is more grand, dealing throughout my life, which is the Worth Burning book that's being released, and Glandscapes being a much smaller book that just sort of deals with issues of death, facing mortality, cancer, the challenges involved with that.
The challenges involved. So, Mr. Mickey, in Worth Burning, what is the fire? Is it the desire, shame, time, love, rage, or something else entirely? And what is the process by which, as a poet, determine what is worth submitting to that flame?
I think for me, there's a lot of different emotions that we go through with Worth Burning. I think dealing with um, the grief and loss of the father, then sort of dealing with the alcoholism of the mother and the physical abuse that comes from that, as well as then coming of age in the South as someone who's gay, but also amidst the AIDS crisis. This was the '80s, and so dealing with that, and then sort of the fear of AIDS getting me to sort of stay in the closet and not come out until much older in my life.
Interesting, Mr. Mickey. Yeah, mapping the internal terrain. Landscapes is a stunning, well, book. It simplifies the body as geography of secret, fluid producing place of hormones, emotions, desire. How do you, as a poet, cartographer, to go about the crafting these internal hidden world, making it navigable for a reader?
I think that for me, one of the ways in which I did that is sort of have sort of a balanced humor because the
Mm.
subject's just so big and it's so powerful and it can be very depressive. And I found that humor was popping up throughout a lot of the poems and landscapes, as you grapple survival and, dealing with death and processing mortality. That for me, humor became the lifeline, and a lot of people really picked up on that in Glandscapes, and how dealing with the prospects of prostate cancer and the changes to your body, through the treatment, and the outcome of that. And I think that it made it seem very genuine and accessible. And also, I think it makes it very human. And so I feel like it's grappling with that survival, and going through it with a grace, but also a sense of humor.
A sense of humor. I will love that. Mr. Mickey, so the first sparks walk us into the origin of a poem that sits as the intersection of these two books. What are the catalysts, a sensation, an image, a memory that first held both the intimacy of the landscape and the urgent combustible quality and something worth burning?
I think that the image making is a little bit different for both. I think that with Glandscapes, it's more the body. There's a little bit of the body in Worth Burning, but we look at it through maybe the lens of shame and the lens of processing, coming out, and not being comfortable in your body. Where I think with Glandscapes, we're dealing with the body and a betrayal of the body through cancer, but also there's a bit of a celebration. That we're going to make it through this, and we're going to come out strong and alive at the other end of it.
A celebration, indeed, for sure, Mr. Mickey. The language of the body, medical and biological language, can feel clinical, yet in a poetic context, it becomes a visceral and mythic. How do you wrestle words like secrete, synapse, serum, or cell away from the textbook and charge them with a new felt meaning?
I think for me, it's using some of the language, the medical jargon and language, but also being aware of the poetry of it. You're looking at sound and rhythm, and you're putting it in the context of the this is something new that we're going through, and the reader may be experiencing some of this for the first time as well. So the context of these words and this jargon in the midst of me discovering it right there on the page with them.
Yes, definitely. Do the forms of these poems, their lines, breaks, stanzas, pacing on the page, mirror the body's own rhythms, like a heartbeat, a breath, a pulse, or the flickering of a flame? How conscious are you of the poem's body on the page of reflecting its subject?
I think that, yeah, I think there's a lot of line breaks and enjambment that deal with the rhythm of the moment, also dealing with, drama in the lines, and, some of the line breaks enhance some of the images of or mortality by the way that you can break in a way that makes it seem like, oh, this is shocking. And I think that that's one of the things that I really tried to spend a lot of effort on, and one of the key defining things that separates poetry from, say, memoir or personal essay, or even prose, is the line breaks and the focus on images, and even more importantly, the focus on sound, being sound driven as well.
Let's talk about the alchemical moment. The idea of burning implies transformation. Something is consumed to become ash, light, or heat in poetic process. Where does this alchemical moment happen? Is it in the initial impulse, the drafting, or the relentless revision?
I think that yeah, these little moments are what happens when you have a successful poem. I mean, there's an alchemy that takes place right there when you've transformed a moment and you've really captured it in an emotional and deep way. And I think that some of that's represented. The title poem of Worth Burning is about me and my mother burning trash in a burn barrel in the backyard, but it's also so much more than that. It's about the relationship with the mother and uh, the anger of the mother and the way that she reacts to things that won't burn. And there's drama in the burn barrel that's all there throughout the book. And we have that also with the landscapes, in which the body is changing, and the relationship to the body that someone has, going through cancer, and being changed as a result of that. This sort of happens as well. But there's also, as we mentioned before, this celebration. We're coming out, we're different, but we're alive, and we've gone on a journey together, and hopefully it's one that has its challenges, and there's got some lows, but there's also some high points, and I think optimism at the end of the book.
Optimism indeed. Sensory overload versus precision. Writing about bodily experience risks being overwhelming or vague. How do you use precise, surprising imagery to translate raw sensation like loss, fever, grief, ecstasy into something a reader can almost physically feel without drowning them in abstraction?
I think that, focusing on the specific, focusing on the things that were odd or strange. I have a poem that's about the going through I guess they did a sample to see if there was cancer in the prostate. I didn't know what to expect, but basically it was like several different captures of tissue, and they were triggered one after another, and this firing that happened, and afterwards there was blood, and the doctor threw what looked like a big giant diaper into the trash, and the sound and weight of that is there in the poem. And I think that capturing those images and not focusing on what is distinct, and what you could see and feel, and even smell in those instances, bringing that to life in a way that's unique, and sort of gets them to that moment.
In mapping such intimate landscape, what role does silence, omission, or the white space on the page play? What is the most powerfully communicated by? What is deliberately left unsaid or unmapped?
I think that I tried to make it so that there's islands on the page in which there's stanzas, and things happen in a regular way, and there's form there, and I think that that form is something that the reader can cling to, and it's not engulfed with just blocks of text. It's something that's easier to digest, and there's a almost a pattern or rhythm that happens throughout that.
Pattern or rhythm. Oh, wow. I will love that, Mr. Mickey. The philosophical core, desire, the transient, and the value. This book seems to ask what is the currency of the body, or what do we produce, like tears, sweat, or memory, or love, and what do we spend? How does poetry act as a ledger for this deeply personal economy?
I think that poetry is one of the things that we capture moments, and of course, a lot of people know poetry by capturing moments of love and attraction. Also, I think some people experience poems that they've seen dealing with loss and
Mhm.
grief, And I think that there's such a swath of emotions and subjects that haven't been truly captured. There's been very few books that I've seen that deal with the process of, dealing with cancer and dealing with the specific prostate cancer, and dealing with prostate cancer as a recently out gay man. All of these complexities are layered, but it gives it such specificity and also just a completely unique experience in a completely new world. And it really maps out in a way that's very distinct. I shared the book with both my oncologist and my urologist, and they were just really blown away with it. They felt like I had really captured something they'd never seen before. And they despite the subject matter, they felt very much like they wanted to share it with other patients, because one of the things that a lot of people who go through these things do is that they don't feel represented, and they don't often want to talk about it. I mean, prostate cancer isn't the one of those cancers that people goes out and just wants to share. There's a little bit of embarrassment with it, and so I think that it's one of these experiences that I feel opens up the world of literature, and it's a subject matter that I think hasn't been dealt with before, and so that's very exciting, and it gives me hope that this will be received well in the literary community.
If landscapes is in a part of topography of desire, what does the terrain look like? Is it volcanic, fertile, and labyrinthine? How does desire shape internal self over time?
I think that desire in landscapes is sort of seen through the lens of um, questioning, like uh is this going to be something that ends? Is the prostate cancer treatment going to erode it, or change it, and what does that look like on the other side of it? There's also a mourning. We're grieving the loss of the prostate throughout the book, and what the fears around what it looks like on the other side of coming out of treatment.
Hmm. The phrase worth burning acknowledges impermanence. Thus, this awareness that feelings, bodies, and moments are combustible intensify the poetic act. Is poetry can attempt to preserve the flame or to honor the ash.
I certainly think so. I think that poetry is one of the ways to create the things that are fleeting and the things that disappear, to record it and archive it and add it to history, both a personal history as well as a history to the world of literature. And I think that Worth Burning does that. I think it deals through, the grief of the father, the grief of losing a mother in a way in which he's transformed. Through that loss by, becoming an alcoholic and becoming physically abusive, and there's also the witness of what happens in the AIDS crisis. That there's so much death surrounding the speaker, and that I see people who just disappear and die, and a lot of their families feel like this is justice. Like my son is gay and they've died of AIDS. This is God deciding that this should happen, and what that fear created was first witnessing it, and then also that was one of the reasons that sort of sent me back into the closet until I was much older and on the other side of the AIDS crisis, where we have prevention and we have treatment and things like that. And so it would say it's very complicated, but it's dealt with, I think, in a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of different palettes of paint that are used in this poetry. There's so many different relationships and so many different experiences.
Mhm. So, vulnerability as a craft. The work requires extraordinary vulnerability. How do you navigate the exposure of sharing these intimate landscapes? Is there a protective distance created by the very act of crafting them into act?
I think that for me, it's becoming an open book. I mean, bearing it all, sharing it all. There's a lot about having prostate cancer, about being gay, being closeted most of my life. There's a resistance now to being silenced, and I want to share. I want to communicate. I want to get this out there. I want people to see what I went through and to experience what I went through and to see the transformation of moving through this. And yes, it's a challenging thing, and yes, it's got a lot of ups and downs, but at the end of it, we're transformed in a way that's beautiful. And, it's, um, like I said, optimistic and positive at the end of the day, transformed.
Beautiful indeed. You're inviting readers into a deeply private spaces. What do you hope happens in the reader's own internal landscapes when they engage with this work? Is it recognition, confrontation, or catharsis?
Um, I think it's for some people, it's witness. For some people who haven't been through this, it's just witnessing and experiencing it and being empathetic to the journey and appreciating that this is something different than they probably experienced before. For some people who've gone through health challenges, maybe cancer, maybe something different, they identify with some of these moments and these sort of strange little moments of humor that pop out in places that you wouldn't expect them to be, but yet it feels very genuine and it feels very honest. And I think that it really depends on who the reader is. And I think that there's a large um, there's room for lots of different types of readers to approach it. And I think that at the end of the day, as long as it's true and it's genuine and there's art in it, I think that there's a lot of room for a lot of different people in different positions to appreciate it. But at the end of the day, I think, witness and then also identifying for others who have been through something similar or have had setbacks in a similar way that may be health related or something else.
The journey between books, considered as a diptych, what is the emotional or philosophical journey from landscapes to worth burning? Does one feel more internal and the other is more external? Is it a movement from mapping to judging, from exploration to conflagration?
I think that Glandscapes is definitely more internal, more physical, more body, more philosophical and questioning mortality, dealing with death. I think that Worth Burning is more about coming of age, sharing and revealing pains and wounds. And there's also in both of them, I think, a sense of optimism and a sense of we've come through something. But I think that Landscapes is definitely more physical and more of the body. And I think that there's a little bit more humor in Landscapes than there is in Worth Burning because I think the subject matter is so potentially dark and potentially yeah, just a lot of fear in there, and I think that that's where the humor bubbles up.
Mm. The poem Under Pressure. Let's look at specific poem. Read us one short poem or excerpt that you feel best embodies the fusion of these two books' concerns. Then tell us about the single word online in it you find most worth burning into the reader's memory and why.
Okay, so I am going to read from Worth Burning, and this poem is Rewiring the Chandelier. My father was an electrician, so this is about an experience with him and sort of foreshadows his death a little bit. Rewiring the chandelier. Dad was standing on a ladder, his arm lost in crystal. When the chain snapped, the chandelier plummeted with him. He lay there covered in shattered light. They tweezed the crystal from his wounds, took off his boots, then washed his feet with saline, the yellow pan turning red. The doctor said they needed to remove his little toe, a dangling comma. I asked my mom if we could keep it, imagining the toe in our freezer, purple in a frosty jar. I wanted part of him entirely to myself. I already knew I would need a relic. And I think that the reason I chose this one is I think it also deals with medical, the hospital. So I think it's got that little resonance between it and Glandscapes, and the intense focus on the scene, and the tweezing of the glass, and the feet being washed and turning the yellow pan red, and the question around what happens to my father's little toe, and imagining keeping it in a jar and showing it to my friends, and but also at the end of it, this recognition of wanting to need a relic, something to remember him by, and what that's foreshadowing that he's going to die later in the manuscript. And I think that it really opens up and lays things bare in a physical way, that I sort of take on. And the physical examination in Glandscapes becomes not my father's body, but my own body. And I think that that's definitely a similarity there.
Mm-hmm. Wow, what a nice poem. Mr. Mickey, thank you for reading for us. I'm inviting you to please do come over to my other podcast, Abstract Poetry, and let's talk read your poem if you are interested. So,
Absolutely.
are there a sensation or experiences in the landscape that you found ultimately infavorable? The language failed to capture, or how do you as a poet with the failure, and does it drive you forward?
Yeah, I think that there's always things that you've tried to experience that don't quite work. And as a result, they don't make it into the book. And
Hmm.
it is frustrating. I find that there are some times where the humor is a little so flippant that I think it might turn a reader off. And the play in that world was just a little bit too much, and so I had poems like that didn't quite make it in there. And yeah, it's part of the process. You're right, and then you curate. You decide what works together as a manuscript, what continues to drive the reader through, and what's going to throw them out, what's going to push them away from the manuscript, and or confuse them. And I think that there are little things like that we have to do by necessity. And these are learning things. Later you might be able to take something and change it so that it does work. And I certainly did that with a few poems, but there are those that you just have to accept don't fit this manuscript, but they're still great poems potentially in isolation.
Yes, definitely. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, Mr. Mickey, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in sixth season, abstract poetry in third season, and of course my book 101 review in sixth season as well, comedy 101 third season, and my food 101 in its sixth season too. Geography 101 love letters, movie 101 review, music 101 on fourth season, science 101, sex 101 third season, and my baby podcast, trivia 101, law 101, motivation 101, entrepreneurship 101, and of course Bible verses 101. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Mickey, tell us if landscapes is mapping and worth burning is the transformative fire. What might be the next collection be? What grows in the ass? Is there a poetic up there you are curious to explore?
I think so. I think that I've been working on more poems that are lyrical, dealing with sound and more abstraction. And I think it's an area for me to dance and play on the page and let words celebrate. And I think that maybe it's a emotional reaction to the dark subject matters of both of these books. So I think that the third book will probably deal more with lyric and having play on the page and having fun, but in a way that is serious and also a way that I think that gives people um, more context for the dark material in the first two books.
Mr. Mickie Kennedy, yeah, thank you so much for sharing any knowledge and wisdom to the world. And please invite our listeners to support your upcoming book or your all your books.
Oh, yep. You could find all of them on MickieKennedy.com, and that's MickieKennedy. And my social media is at Mickie Poet, MickiePoet. And I look forward to people learning more and supporting me by purchasing one or both of my books. Thank you.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Mickie Kennedy because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering poetry books will rise. So, I have one more question, Mr. Mickey. Finally, after all this exploration of the combustible body and heart, what you found through poetry to be truly unburnable? What is the element that remains when the flame of a feeling or a moment has passed?
I think it's community and appreciation. I think that a lot of people, other poets, have come to me and appreciated the poems as they've been published in journals, and also people, supporting what I've been through. There's been a real community. A lot of poets have taken a look at my manuscripts and given me pointers and helped me along the way. And I think that that's been one of the greatest gifts through this. I felt a sense of camaraderie and community and love and care and support.
Indeed. So, Mr. Mickey Kennedy, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you.
What can people see you soon?